Should Indian students studying in American universities be cautious now about what they write on social media, what articles they co-author and share, and also whether or not they join protests of fear of deportation? That's the question we're going to attempt to tackle in this video. Also, before I get started, remember, like, share, subscribe, share this video with someone you think might find this information useful, and sign up for our membership if you can. To begin with, the Washington Post has an article dated the 25th of March that says that there was a sweeping request made by the Trump administration on universities and colleges to disclose the names and nationalities of student protesters, and this has reportedly triggered an alarm among legal experts and the immigrant communities. The move is being seen by many as a tool for possible deportation, and it really comes in the middle of a larger crackdown on campus activism. Now, according to another report by Business Today here in India, it's putting the 330,000 Indian students a little bit on edge. Now, the Wall Street Journal says the US administration has asked universities to also identify students who have, and I'm quoting, harassed their Jewish peers or joined pro-Palestinian protests. And there seems to be an indication that there's the belief that these two things are the same thing. Now, critics warn that this data sheet could be used as a tip sheet by the administration to deport foreign students. 28th March article in the Economic Times in India says that the US government is also scrutinizing universities with a significant number of foreign students engaging in demonstrations, and it could lead to a possible decertification of their student and exchange visitor program. Now, recently in the media, there's been reports of at least 8 international students and professors, all of whom have valid green cards or student visas, who have been targeted by ICE, which is the US Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Now, including Columbia University, Georgetown University, Cornell University, and University of Alabama. Let me give you some of those instances. Now, to begin with, Rumesa Orstuk, this was a really disturbing, chilling video that we all saw of Rumesa. On the 25th of March, this 30-year-old Turkish national doctoral student at Tufts University was detained by ICE agents near her residence in Massachusetts. She was apprehended when she was on her way to meet her friends to break her fast. The video shows masked, plainclothes agents taking her into custody, confiscating her devices, her phone and her laptop bag, sparking widespread concerns and more protests among students about civil rights. Now, Osturk is a Fulbright scholar pursuing a PhD in human development and has been in the United States on a valid F1 student visa. Her activism includes basically co-authoring an editorial or an op-ed for the Tufts Daily, urging the university to acknowledge the Palestinian genocide and to divest from companies with ties to Israel. Now, her friends and her colleagues who've spoken to the press have said that op-ed is the only thing that she did. That was the full extent of her involvement in pro-Palestinian activities. But in the meantime, the Department of Homeland Security has said that they have detained her after an investigation, and they've alleged that she engaged in activities in support of Hamas. However, the Homeland Security has not provided any evidence to support this claim. Now, here I must point out to you that the Secretary of State, Mark Rubio, of the American government has confirmed that they have revoked her visa and emphasized that visas are intended for study and not for social activism. Rubio has also noted that the administration has revoked 300 other visas in similar contexts, and I'm quoting him here where he said, "Every time I find one of these lunatics, I will take away their visa," end quote. As of now, Osturk remains in detention in Louisiana. Her lawyers have filed a petition to challenge her detention and seek her return to Massachusetts. The Turkish embassy has stated that it is in contact with US authorities to provide consular services and legal support for her rights. Now, that was one case. The second case, on the 8th of March, ICE agents arrested Mahmoud Khalil, who was a recent Columbia University graduate. He was the lead negotiator for the Columbia University Apartheid Divest during the campus protests last year. He was taken from his university-owned New York City apartment, while his wife, Noor, who was 8 months pregnant, recorded the arrest on her phone. Another instance, and this time an Indian national, Badr Khan Suri, was arrested on the 17th of March at his home in Northern Virginia. He's a postdoctoral fellow at Georgetown University, and he had been in Virginia for 3 years, and he held a valid student visa at the time of his arrest. Now, Georgetown University in a written statement said, "We are not aware of Suri engaging in any illegal activity. We have not received any reason for his detention." The US Department of Homeland Security spokesperson has attributed his arrest to, and I'm quoting here, the spread of Hamas propaganda and the prompting of anti-Semitism. And she wrote that he has close connections to a suspected terrorist. Now, Suri's wife, Mafisi Saleh, is an American citizen, and apparently her father was an advisor to a Hamas political leader. So, at this point, there is evidence to believe that Badr Khan Suri's father-in-law was an advisor to Hamas, and that is why he was arrested. Even more recently, another Indian student, Rajani Srinivasan, who is an Indian student at Columbia, self-deported after her visa was revoked. So, basically, she voluntarily left the country. Ms. Srinivasan is currently in Canada, and she doesn't know what her future is going to be. She says she feels betrayed by her college, Columbia University, and this is what she's saying. She said, "I spent 5 years at Columbia University working, I don't know, maybe 100 hours a week sometimes. I've never expected the institution to let me down, but it did." She was a Fulbright scholar at Columbia University. She says, "I hope Columbia comes to its senses and re-enrolls me." She went on to say she's made all her academic submissions and completed all her university requirements for her PhD, and now she just needs her PhD to be handed to her. She doesn't even need to be in the US for it. Now, let me take a pause here and tell you what else is going on. President Trump has taken a very firm stance since he took over in office against campus protest and anti-Semitism, and there is within his government the understanding that pro-Palestinian protests on campus leads to anti-Semitism among students and professors. Now, the federal government has already cut funding to universities that have become or are being viewed as centers of protest. On March 3rd, it revoked a $400 million grant in contracts to Columbia University and restored the funds only after the college made policy changes. This sparked fresh protests among students. A memo that's been accessed by the Wall Street Journal shows that Craig Traynor, the Education Department's acting Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, has directed the Office for Civil Rights to focus on anti-Semitism cases, warning that mutual, this sort of toothless reform proposals and empty platitudes will no longer do. You have to take real action. The Department of Education has also warned 60 universities that they could face sanctions for failing to protect Jewish students. At the same time, the administration has moved to deport students involved in pro-Palestinian protests, including green card holders like Mahmoud Khalil. The officials claim these protesters supported Hamas and thereby they support violence. Now, what does the law say about whether or not foreign students are allowed to protest, allowed to dissent, or allowed to criticize? Now, according to the Yale page for international students in the US are legally permitted to participate in peaceful protests under the First Amendment right, which safeguards the freedom of speech and assembly for all individuals regardless of citizenship status. This First Amendment applies to international visitors who are welcome to participate in lawful public demonstrations and protests. The federal government apparently now is using a really rare law that has hardly ever been used before in order to deport these students. Now, it's pulled out a law which says basically the Secretary of State can deport a non-citizen if that non-citizen threatens US foreign policy. Although only an immigration judge, like I pointed out earlier, can take away a green card, and the use of this law is being challenged in court, but for now it is being used. So, let me come back now to why we're talking about this. There are, like I said, a little over 330,000 Indian students currently studying in the US, and how does this affect them? We looked to what our Ministry of External Affairs was saying about the deportations, about the 2 deportations that I pointed out to you and everything else. Now, this is what MEA spokesperson Randir Jaiswal has said. He said that we've addressed this issue several times in the past. When it comes to visa and immigration policy, these are sovereign matters that lie within the jurisdiction of each country. So, we expect that Indian nationals abroad must comply with local laws and regulations. And responding specifically to Badr Khan Suri's case, he said, "We are given to understand through media reports that this individual has been detained. Neither the US government nor the individual has approached us or the embassy," end quote. So there is a lot going on now. An AP article has pointed out, Associate Press article has pointed out from the US that international students and faculty, and this is not specifically Indian, across the board, say they feel afraid to voice their opinions and stand out on campus for the fear of getting kicked out of the country. Now, Veena Dubal, who is a law professor at the University of California, has said green card holding faculty members involved in any kind of advocacy might be construed as not being welcome by the Trump administration. So they are absolutely terrified at this point that it might affect their immigration status. Now, Ms. Dubal, who is also General Counsel for the American Association for University Professors, has said international faculty are now shying away from debate, from discourse, from publishing articles in peer-reviewed journals as well. And she says basically we're literally not hearing their voices. There is a silencing happening that will have a huge impact on the vibrancy of education. CNBC TV 18 in India has reported that as of the 20th of March, at least 2 Ivy League universities have urged their international students to reconsider upcoming travels amid a widely possible travel ban that the Trump administration may be considering. So as of March 16th, Brown University issued a campus-wide email advising international students to reconsider any trips overseas. Brown's email was very similar to the Yale Law School professors giving their advice to international students, saying consider returning to US if you're overseas, and those currently in the country should avoid leaving. Additionally, immigration attorneys are advising H-1B visa holders, international students and green card holders to avoid traveling overseas unless absolutely necessary. We're going to, of course, try and find more immigration experts who can give us specific advice for this. What I'll ask you to do is leave a comment in the comment section if you have a question about yourself or about a loved one, or in general a comment about what's going on. It is true that it is within the rights of the US government to decide how they want to treat citizenship or visa status within their country. What does this mean for students who are studying in universities right now? These are the questions that we're going to continue to ask over the next few days. So if you have a question, leave it in the comment section. We'll get an expert to answer those questions for you.